Thank you very much for having me here today. And I have to say, Karen, that was a fantastic presentation. I really enjoyed it, and thank you for sharing your story with it as well. And it really resonated with me because I share the view that really workplaces are about connection. It's about connecting people, and that's sort of the core and the nuts and bolts of what we do. So I'm here today to talk about a pilot program, employee support pilot program we ran in partnership with the Department of Housing and Public Works in Gold Coast and Logan housing service centres. And in thinking about, I guess, the themes of the conference around collaborate, innovate and achieve, I think this is a really good example of what can happen when we all talk to each other, we work together, and we think differently about how we can address, in particular, mental health and wellbeing. And I think the results speak for themselves. I want to talk a little bit about my story and my journey to be here standing today. In terms of, I guess, where I grew up and come from, it's not too far from here. Albury-Wodonga's home for me, and spent the first 20 odd years of my life growing up and going to uni there, and through a placement at the Royal Melbourne Hospital in the psych unit, developed a real passion for working in mental health and decided that when I finished in 2011, that's where I wanted to go and work in acute psychiatric services. So I worked in a little hospital in Wangaratta in northeast Victoria, and did that for about 15 months through 2012 and 13, and pretty much you name it, I saw it in terms of the worst of the worst, in terms of what mental health can do to people. So a range of different conditions and the effects it can have on individuals and the families, that are attached to people. And I thought there's got to be a better way that we can make an impact, and certainly for me, my calling came around that time where I wanted to do something more in the preventative space. And as well, the cold Victorian winters drove me up north to Queensland, and I've been in Brisbane since 2013 and with Strive since that time. And certainly the weather over the last 4 or 5 days that I've been here has reminded me why I've moved. So Strive, we're a Queensland-based rehabilitation provider. Cairns, Townsville, Brisbane and Gold Coast are where we service, and we service all of the state. And we do a lot of work in the workers' comp sector as well as income protection. But the bulk of the work that we do is with employers directly, because we feel that that's where we can have the most impact, and we work with employers that share our vision, which really is engage people thriving at work. And a lot of what Karen was saying before, that people bring a lot of things to the workplace, a lot of things that are happening outside of work, and it's not just the stresses of work that impact on people. So that's really the vision and the passion that we share. In terms of giving a bit of context around our talk today and where the pilot program has come from, I think it's important that I talk to you a bit about the lens in which we see the world, and certainly how I see the world. And I have the pleasure of going around and talking with a number of different people from different industries all across the state. And there's a few things that I find everyone has in common. One is you ask, how are you going? And the typical response is busy. And the other one is everyone seems to be telling me we need to do more work in less time with less resources. I can see a few people nodding their heads. And my organisation's feeling a bit the same at the moment. When I start to talk to people about, well, why is this the case? I think it's come from, a bit of an evolution of technology, and we heard a lot about that yesterday as well, that it's sort of evolved a lot for positive reasons, but we almost live in an instant gratification society where, if you think about it, pretty much anything we want we can have just about now. If we want to watch a new movie, we go on iTunes, or we stream it on Netflix. We want a new song, we go on Spotify. We want a new car, we go to the car dealership, don't worry, we'll finance you. Want a new mobile phone plan, don't worry, you've got 12 months on your contract, just pay a bit more, we'll sort it out, you can take it away today. Pretty much whatever you want, you can have it now. And over the last 5 to 10 years or so, we've sort of seen that creep into our own expectations. And I guess the way that it's impacted business, at least from my perspective, is we're trying to keep up with that demand, that people want stuff now. So, the cost of running business is not getting cheaper, but we need to try and keep up with this expectation. In terms of, I guess, from a rehab provider lens and I guess what's happening in the landscape in Queensland over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen a downsizing in provider panels. I know we've got the ORMS panel in place at the moment, where I think there's 14 providers servicing the whole Commonwealth. And in the Queensland space in 2014, we saw that there was 120 plus providers servicing the state. It got shrunk to 30. And the impact that that's had on people who we've been talking with and our customers is we don't have the choice. People don't understand the intricacies of the local communities and the people that we work with. So the lens in which we see the world and where this has sort of evolved from, that provides a bit of context. In terms of, I guess, the perspective of the department and how things have evolved, some of the things that they've noticed over the last 4 or 5 years is certainly an increase in the complexity of the needs of the customers. So for those of you that don't know about housing and public works, the housing side of the department is effectively social housing. So each state would have something similar. In terms of what they've noticed, there's been an increase in mental illness, an increase in substance abuse, an increase in domestic and family violence, an increase in communication barriers, as well as an increase in homelessness. The typical housing officer that works in the department in the housing service centres is probably your traditional public servant that for the most part have come straight out of school and have gone into a public service job and hasn't really had the training or the tertiary education around dealing with some really complex issues and complex people. So as the needs of these people are getting more and more complicated, it's having a greater impact on the staff. What they've noticed is that it's affected staff being able to leave work at work. And Karen talked a lot about, that wellbeing encompasses a whole world outside of work as well. And, you just think about some of the things that you bring into the workplace and then you're facing and dealing with some of these issues. So they've also noticed there's been an increase in verbal, emotional and physical abuse to frontline staff in housing service centres as well. So in terms of the lens in which they see it through, over the last 4 or 5 years, there's certainly been an evolution in this space. WorkCover Queensland talks about violence at work as really any incident in which a person is abused, threatened or assaulted in the circumstances relating to their own work. It includes both verbal and physical aggression, and some of the factors that they talk about that impact on aggression in the workplace are long wait times, increased reliance on customers and automated technology, and staff having to suppress their emotions or really not being able to debrief and react. In terms of what we've seen from the statistics and just looking at the stat claims in 2016 and 17 for mental health and also in the public administration and safety sector, you can see that they've gone up in that time as well. So at least from our perspective, and I appreciate not everyone will probably share this view, we don't feel the smaller panels are working. So is this something that just Queensland is dealing with? Is this just a problem north of the border and that something's wrong with us banana vendors up in Queensland? Or is this something that is a bit more prevalent than what we think? In April 2015, there was an ABC News article that reported that in the 12 months leading up to October 2014, in the Department of Human Services, there was nearly 10,000 acts of aggression towards workers. So I did the maths and I worked out it's about 38 a day just for DHS. And that's only the ones that are reported. So I imagine there would be many, many more that weren't. On the 4th of January 2017, DHS spokesperson Hank Yongan said that beleaguered Centrelink staff will soon receive advanced customer aggression training as the government agency continues to face public backlash over its controversial debt recovery scheme. And it talked about rolling out a mandatory training for staff every 4 years to help deal with the customer aggression and the rise and increase of this. So certainly from where we see it, it's not just a Queensland problem. It's something that's affecting the Commonwealth sector as well, in particular DHS, and it's affecting all of us. So what did we do? Well, what we did is we talked to people. We collaborated. We had a lot of meetings and we listened. I think that's really key when we're talking about trying to understand what's going on for people. We met with executive directors, HR representatives, regional directors, housing officer staff, and the managers of the housing service centres to understand what are their needs, what's happening for them. And through that collaboration, we thought, how can we think differently? What can we influence? What can we try and control? We can't control people coming into the housing centres that might be aggressive or abusive. but we can put some priorities in place to try and influence how we react to them and how we look after the staff there. So after a lot of meetings and discussions, we developed our employee support pilot program. As I said, we partnered with the Department of Housing and Public Works, and basically what we agreed on is coming up with a 6-month pilot across 2 housing service centres in Woodridge and Robina. The goals that we agreed on are that we wanted to promote a supportive and workplace culture at both sites. We wanted to upskill staff around their resilience management. We wanted staff to feel more aware of their own stress warning signs, and in particular being more aware of their go-to strategies, because it's one thing to know that you're stressed, that's another thing to know what to do about it. And we also wanted to upskill staff to ensure they had the communication skills to debrief effectively. The pilot kicked off at the beginning of March in 2017, and it ran through to the end of August of 2017. In terms of a bit of a breakdown of what it included, there were a range of different things, some of which Strive led and others that the department led. There was a review of the Employee Assistance Service, the Early Intervention Centre and the Safety Hazard Environment reporting schemes that were in place. The only mandatory aspect of the program were the support and debrief trainings, in which Strive ran, that we made manager specific and staff specific as well. Everything else was voluntary. And these were carried out every 2 months and built on the last session. We ran resilience workshops in an engaging way so that people could proactively and in a fun way learn the skills to manage and look after their own mental health and wellbeing. The department ran monthly presentations on different topics, including vicarious trauma and managing aggressive customers. We provided on-site support for individual debriefings with staff, 1 full day a fortnight. Myself and one of our psychologists were sitting in the offices debriefing with staff, hearing their stories and understanding what's impacting them at work. And I'd have to say, anecdotally, about 85 to 90% of the stuff we were talking about was things that were going on outside of work that people were bringing to work, and it was work that was compounding it. We ran recurring fortnightly mindfulness groups for staff, where we would teach not just the sitting practice of mindfulness, but practical skills to try and implement it throughout your day in the workplace as a means of trying to separate some of that emotional strain and trauma that you might gather through the day, and also to try and better manage those difficult thoughts and feelings as they come up, and increase emotional awareness as well as empathy and being able to communicate effectively. We had recurring fortnightly debrief groups where staff in teams or whoever was in the office was able to come in once a fortnight and debrief about the challenges they were facing then and there. It didn't matter what it was, whether it was due to rostering resources, whether it was a difficult client, whether it was conflict. We would problem solve and try and implement strategies that the staff can take away and own themselves. The department also included initiatives like a fitness passport and some more mental health awareness training, and also did healthy morning tea activities, as well as a review of their own flexible working practices. So you can see there was a lot covered in the program in the 6 months that we did, and it was a fairly intensive 6 months. So what were the results? What are some of the things that we achieved? Well, in determining what the results were and how we would try and measure it, again, we did a lot of talking to work out how do we best do this. We wanted to try and gather some qualitative and quantitative data to see, have we hit the mark or are we going in completely the wrong direction? So through talking with HR and work health and safety reps at the department, we developed a survey that was administered pre, mid and post the program to try and capture both qualitative and quantitative data. What we found, as I mentioned, that there was only one aspect of the program that was mandatory, the rest was all voluntary. We had an uptake of about 88% across both of the sites, where people came and participated in at least one of the voluntary groups or more. For me, it was definitely a lot more than one. What we found when we were looking at staff in feeling comfortable in having difficult conversations is that 91% of the participants reported that most of the time or all of the time they had the skills to have difficult conversations. And just from the start to the midpoint of the program over a 3-month period, it increased by nearly 18%. And if you think about the types of clients that these people are working with, difficult conversations is what they do day in and day out, whether they're telling people they're chasing up arrears, or they're talking about a domestic violence situation, or that sadly they're only a high category, they don't qualify as very high, so they can't be given a house. What we found when we looked at self-care and resilience was that 88% of participants said that most of the time or all of the time they have the skills and tools needed to care for themselves. Just from the beginning to the midpoint, it went up 24% and remained steady until the end of the program. And if you think about you having these conversations day in and day out along with everything else you're bringing to work, self-care and resilience is so crucial to being able to come in and give your best to work. In terms of awareness of own and others' mental health, we found 83% said that most of the time or all of the time they had an awareness of how they were feeling at any given point in time and also how others were. And again, this increased by 16% from the beginning to the middle of the program and remained steady throughout. And if you think about being able to have an awareness of others' mental health is so important, not only for the staff they're working with, but for the types of complex people that they're working with as well, so they can respond empathically and provide high quality service. In being able to bounce back, because that's the other part of resilience, is being able to come in, pull up your socks and turn up to work each day regardless of what's going on. We found 83% of participants said most of the time or all of the time they could bounce back. Again, increased by 9% from the beginning to the midpoint of the program. And being able to cope with the day-to-day demands, as I talked about earlier, you know, the sense of busyness that not only the department staff but everyone feels, and also the do more in less time with less resources. It's important to feel like we've got a sense of control over what we're doing. 86% of the participants said that most of the time or all of the time that they were able to do that through the support of the program. I also wanted to talk today about what was the cost of the program, because there was a lot of activities involved, there was a lot of initiatives and training and all sorts of support provided that you might be thinking, geez, that must have been an astronomical amount of money to provide, you know, to these housing service centres. So I've broken it down a bit for everyone. So this is a cost per site over the 6-month period. We estimate it to cost about $35,000 per HSC, which is just under about $6,000 a month, or when you break it down per staff member, $945 per staff member for 6 months of support. If you think about when you're applying for some professional development or some training through work, we're normally pretty happy to send people off to pay a few $1,000s for a one-day course. So with this, you get 6 months of support and training in terms of mental health and wellbeing and support in your workplace at a time you need it. It worked out to be about 155 hours of support per site over the 6-month period, or just over 3.5 full days of support training and mindfulness education. Actually, only this morning I came across these statistics when I was at the Black Dog Institute stand, and I think this makes it even more compelling. They've estimated through research that they've done that the workers' comp costs for stress-related disorders are about $200 million per annum. And they also talked about the cost per employee who's battling depression is estimated to be about $8,025 per year per employee to an organisation. I was really pleased to find as well, the Black Dog Institute talked about, well, what's the return on investment? You know, because I think, you know, you asked Kevin before about how do we get buy-in from, you know, people that talk dollars and cents. And to me, I think it comes back to the ROI figure. So the Black Dog Institute suggests that for every dollar spent on mental health prevention, you get about a $14 return on the bottom line. So if you think about this cost of $35,000 over 6 months, it works out to be about a $490,000 return on investment to the bottom line of the business, and that's per site. I also wanted to share with you some exciting news about where to next. So since the pilot ended at the end of August last year, the department said, this is too good to stop, we need to keep it going. So I've had a maintenance program in place at both Gold Coast and Logan housing service centres where we're doing a scaled back version of the program. And that's been running for over 12 months now. And we've done another survey, and what it's shown in terms of the key markers is that everything's remained pretty much where it was 12 months ago. So it says to us what we're doing is working. We're also really excited to announce that earlier this year we've had 2 other sites up and running in Cairns, the local housing service centre and as well the remote and Indigenous community service centres, so that we're addressing those up in the far north. And only 2 weeks ago, the Queensland Government's provided support and approval to roll out this program statewide to all housing service centres. So that works out to be roughly about 30 other sites that we need to cover over the coming 12 months. So it's really exciting times for us, really exciting times for the department to be able to offer some proactive and preventative support to people when they need it. So I've talked a lot about my view of the world and the lens in which we see the world, but the department also, as part of rolling it out and getting some buy-in to other sites, were kind enough in developing up a video. So I wanted to play it for you today so you can hear directly from those who participated in the program what it meant to them and what impact it had on them. So I'm going to play that for you now.
Housing Service Centre staff are unsung heroes. They come here and work in the community because they have a commitment to achieving positive outcomes. And you don't always get them every single day. And that can wear and fatigue staff.
Having that program for the staff to actually go to and help out with their wellbeing has been really good. From my perspective, being an occupational therapist, I think the flow-on effects for staff to actually impact on the clients has been really good.
Because we all have issues outside of work as well, and we don't want to bring that into work. We've got to stop putting our personal thoughts into work and thinking that everything is targeted at us.
And what we found is that originally we were really problem focused, but with Chris's kind of instruction we came to realise that, hey, we can actually be solution focused. We can look at the opportunities that present themselves because of this and how we can change the way we do things and the culture and things like that in our workplace.
So there's 5 elements to the program. Individual sessions with Strive, and that's available to anyone in the office. Group debrief sessions, again available to anyone. Some compulsory training for all staff around debriefing. Mindfulness sessions and resilience training.
Through the resilience training, I think it's brought a sense of ownership in that people recognise that they do a difficult job that makes a big difference to others.
I've learned a lot about myself, my limitations, my capabilities. I've learned about things that I need to implement, like greater resilience.
And understanding no 2 people are the same, and you don't have to all operate at that level.
They're recognising their own strengths, they're able to come up with solutions for themselves that work for them, and then in doing that help the community.
Well, the mindful sessions are super helpful because it can get a little bit stressful in the office when you're taking a bad phone call or you got a bad client. They kind of give you that space to reset yourself and get yourself back on track.
The mindfulness sessions have been so beneficial for our team because staff are able to take time to really focus on positive outcomes that they can achieve, both personally and for the clients that they're assisting within the community.
Their capacity at work has improved, and even just their sense of feeling okay at work has improved as well.
Within the debriefing sessions, I think, yes, there was a lot more communication between people. I think it did allow people a sort of a safe space to open up to.
There's been a lot of bonds made. People have really developed greater levels of trust with one another, and as a result you can see that people are more willing to help each other in their day-to-day work environments.
Definitely, yeah.
Afterwards, when we come out, we can sort of see, okay, well, that person was really stressed at something. I can take something from them to help them out.
Being able to capture staff and sit with staff in some of the really tough times and unpack that experience with them and really give people a bit more hope around what can you control about this situation.
Having somebody who comes into the office that I can sit down with and just talk through some of the experiences that we've had out there on the road is amazing. It clears your mind. It means you don't take the problems out of the office.
The office is already super supportive of each other, which is one of the reasons why I really like working here. But I've seen individually within team members a boost in helping them get over obstacles or get through whatever hard times they're currently experiencing.
I talk to people outside of work about the program and they're blown away that this is available to us.
Yeah, they really have improved the culture.
Yeah.
Like we've had a staff member that went away for a fair few years and has come back and has noticed the difference in the culture and the positivity.
Staff really do get a better sense of other people around them and other teams. There's a few staff who I was actually surprised said, look, this has been really beneficial for me and I'm actually doing this at home, sharing it with my family, and it really helps me feel better balanced when I'm at work.
And something else that I got a real kick out of was staff really, through the mindfulness aspect of the program, embracing gratitude, being really grateful for the things that they've got in their own lives and the things they've got in their workplace. Through the data that we captured, all of the voluntary aspects of the program, we got a buy-in of about 88%, which I think was great.
We're an employer of choice, and this is a real program that highlights our commitment to supporting staff and providing them a space to flourish within their career.
I think it's really proactive of the department to actually be putting these types of programs in place. Anything we can do to help people improve their health, well-being, it just has ripple effects onto their work, their colleagues, their clients and their families.
Sorry, I just cut the last 20 seconds off of the video because I seen the countdown timer. I'm pretty much bang on time, and that's all I had to talk about today. So I wanted to thank you all very much for having us here and allowing us this forum, and I think it's a fantastic way to talk and collaborate and to work together, and yeah, it's been an honour, so thank you very much.